Hi relatives, this is Mackenzie. I'm from the HIR Wellness Institute, and today we're going to be doing some Zentangle. Alright, so to get us started, we have the HIR Wellness Warms Cares lines. These are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And these are mostly just meant if you need someone to talk to or to hold space with you with. Always feel free to give us a call. Again, that's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Alright, so I'm going to set down my camera here. And I have some paper here. So I'm going to get started first by, I've got my paper here, but I want to talk about the senses a little bit. So Zentangle is always about being mindful. It's described as yoga for the brain. So when you're doing Zentangle, it's important to think about your senses. How does the pen make you feel? What are you smelling? Do you have a bad taste in your mouth? Because all of these things are going to contribute to whether or not you're enjoying what you're doing and going into a meditative like state. So always think about physically where you're at to help make Zentangle the most effective it can be. And today, for example, I've got my I've got my diffuser going, I've got some music playing, I'm sitting next to my fish tank, so I've got water noises. Outside I'm looking at the grass, I'm using some of my favorite pens and pencils. That's what I always do for my Zentangles. So this is how I take care of myself physically so that I can get the most out of Zentangle while I'm doing it. And then I'm going to draw a couple of cute pictures, which I always think really helps with my Zentangle. So I'm going to start with a fox. And the way I'm going to start with that is I'm going to draw a couple of simple shapes. So I'm going to position my camera here. Sorry about this. So I've got my paper, and I'm going to start with a pencil. From here, I'm going to draw a circle for the head. And then I'm going to draw a triangle just below the circle. And then from there I'm going to move down into an oval. I'm going to make the oval a little bit heavier on the bottom, so it's slightly pear-shaped. Now from here, I'm going to go back up to my triangle, and I'm just going to round out the edges a little bit to kind of make it look like a fur collar. I'm also going to bring that down to kind of a tip at the bottom here, curving that out a little bit. Going back up to the head, I'm going to make it lemon shaped. So I'm going to bring out some corners here. Again, I started with a circle, went down into a triangle, and then I drew an oval down at the bottom here. And now I'm just rounding out some of the edges so I can create my fox shape. So from here, I'm going to add one ear, and then I'm going to add another, and these are just really round triangles. Then I'm going to go over to the side here, and I'm going to add my favorite part, the tail. And to start with the tail, I'm actually just going to draw a dot off to the side here, and it's a good ways away from the body, so it's not in line with any part of the body, it's really separate. And then from here, I'm going to be able to draw my tail shape, which is going to go out, then it's going to curve back in and connect to the body. When I draw that outer portion, I'm kind of going to do the same thing, focusing on making what looks to me like a foxtail shape. And I honestly it's kind of an S. If you draw this line first, it's a very elongated S, and then this one just curves down to connect it. But I really find it's helpful to start with that center point up top here. And then from there, I'm going to draw some legs. So I'm going to draw like a V here, and then I'm going to draw some feet. I'm going to bring up those legs here. And then I'm going to draw these back legs. And the back leg over here by the tail isn't really going to show, so I think I'm going to take that one out. And I'll just make this leg a little bit bigger. So there is my base drawing. And now from here, I'm going to take a marker. And I've just got a nice big thick black marker, and I'm going to outline my base shape here. So starting up here, I'm going to start with the head. And again, that's kind of my lemon shape. Go back up to the ears. Now I'm going to go back down to the cowl. And then I go back down to the body. I'm going to bring this out a little bit because I want a rounder shape. I'm going to stop when I reach the leg. I'm going to go down to the other side and do the same thing. And then down here at the feet, I'm just going to bring up these inner legs. Down. And I'm going to bring that foot out. I'm going to grab that back foot over here. And then I'm going to do the tail. Alright, and the last one is over here on the tail. I'm just going to draw a wavy line for that tip. And so there is my base drawing for my fox. And again, we started with just a couple of simple shapes. We drew a lemon for the head, a triangle for the neck, a pretty big oblong oval for the body, and then we just added in our details. So we added in a tail, a couple of ears, and some legs. From here, I'm going to take my eraser and I'm just going to erase out all those pencil lines. And from here, I'm going to start doing my Zentangle. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my marker really quick, and I'm going to add a face to my fox. The way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to start at the bottom here, in the middle, and I'm just going to draw a rounded line to the edge. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And kind of at the crux where these lines meet, all I'm going to do is just fill that in for a nose, and bring that out just a touch. And then I'm going to draw two eyes. Those are just going to be a couple of ovals. And to start with, I'm going to use an orange marker. Again, you don't have to do these in color, but I'm enjoying using color with these simpler designs. So I'm going to use color for this. And I'm going to target a couple of specific areas. So the design that I'm going to be using is the circle design, which we've seen before. And I've talked about using rules with the circle design because consistency is really what makes a Zentangle pattern. A lot of them are the same thing, just with slightly different consistencies. So I'm going to start with a circle, and then I'm going to create another circle of a different size that's larger and overlaps. You'll also see that this circle does touch the edge. So those are the rules that I'm going to follow for this Zentangle. My circles overlap, are of varying sizes, and can cross into the edge. And that's all this is. So my circles overlap, they are of varying sizes, and they can cross into the edge. This pattern does appear very chaotic, but I enjoy how it ends up mimicking the fur when it starts getting larger. If this isn't a pattern that you're liking, if it's, not feeling great to you, if you don't like the appearance of it or drawing it isn't doing anything for you, Always feel free to switch to a different pattern or change up the rules. If what you're not liking is that they're overlapping, draw them next to each other. If what you're not liking is that there's not enough color, maybe fill in outside between the circles. You know, it's just important for you to find you. One part about using this overlapping portion is that I can go back in and add more circles where I think that there's too much empty space. So now that I'm done with the face, I'm going to go back up to the ears and I'm going to do the same thing. Now that I'm going back, now that I finished up my ears, I'm going to go down. So I'm going to skip this lower face in the cowl, and I'm going to move and do this to the body. And I'm going to do that for all the feet. Again, I really love how this makes the fox look. He's kind of got like a silly appearance to him. And then as we're doing this, I'm paying attention, like, how is this affecting me? Well, my hand's a little bit tight, so I'm just gonna relax it a little bit by moving the joints around. I'm gonna pay attention to how my neck is craned, what my back's doing, how my feet are planted on the floor. And all these little things, once you find a comfortable area, a comfortable position, maybe you like switching it up a lot, this can really help in how Zentangle works with you. If you're just joining us and want to participate, always feel free to just draw a larger circle and continue with the Zentangle pattern. We're going to be starting a second drawing in a little bit. But this way, like, I like these little drawings, but always feel free, if you're not really into drawing the little animals or the plants that we do, always feel free to just take an object that you have nearby. draw some spaces and then fill those up with Zentangle. Or feel free to put a full page of one design. You don't have to do as many little designs as we do. You don't have to have as many different types of patterns. This is all about meditating and finding a really good way to just, do small physical repetitive movements, kind of get in tune with yourselves. So if this isn't, working for you, always feel free to switch it up. So now that I finished the body, I'm going to move on to the tail. And I'm only going to do this bottom portion of the tail. I'm not going to do the top up here. Alright. Thank you guys. I'm always happy to hear your guys' feedback. I'd love to be able to see all of your pictures too as we go along. But, okay. So now I've got the fox done, and I'm going to do the background. So for the background, I'm going to start with my ruler. I'm going to do a gridded background. So I'm going to take my ruler and a pencil, and I'm just going to mark off 1-inch sections. I'm going to switch around to the side here, do the same thing. Adjust my camera a little bit. If you don't have a ruler, always feel free to take a sticky note or something, or another piece of paper might be better for this one. And then you can go through and mark at an arbitrary length using that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my ruler, line up between two of these little lines here, and draw a line with my pencil. And again, I'm using pencil for this just so that I can go back and erase it when I'm done using this grid. I'm not gonna draw through my fox here. I totally could, but I'm gonna respect his lines. That's awesome. I love that you guys can see a fox from your house. We had a bear up on my road the other day. I don't know if y'all know, I don't live in Milwaukee. I live in kind of a rural area, but I live in a city that has 3,000 people in it, and we saw a bear up the road. So that was an interesting experience. I usually see a lot of deer, but the bear was new. But it's great to see foxes. I had right out here, just the other day, we had a beaver, I think. Not a beaver. What was it? Woodchuck. We had a woodchuck, and I was shocked at how large it was. I'd never seen a woodchuck in real life before. It's huge. It was it could outweigh all of my cats. Oh, drew through my fox. You have fun with the bears. I've seen a lot of them in like wildlife preserves, but it was interesting to hear that we'd had a bear in town. Usually I just see them when I'm driving around. Alright, so there I've got a very large grid pattern. And this is the basis for my background design. So for this one, I'm going to use 2 different colors, and I'm going to use blue and then a light green. And I think I'm going to start with a larger marker than that, actually. I'm going to use a large blue and a light green. If you don't have varying sizes of markers, please, like, don't feel weird about it. Like, I've collected markers for years, so I just happen to have these lying around. Always feel free to use like color pencils or, you know, markers if you have them, or do this in black and white. You don't need the color to really participate in this. It just creates a different appearance. If you don't use color, it kind of looks like a coloring book, so you can always give it to someone who enjoys using color later, or color it in yourself later. But I'm using colors for these, but you really don't have to. So I'm actually gonna walk back to my ruler really quick. And this one should be just one more line. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a diagonal. I'm going to switch to baby ruler to start with because it's a little easier to use. And then from here, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to draw a diagonal line. And all I'm doing is I'm just trying to connect these center points. If your squares aren't perfect or even like mathematically close, always feel free to like just hand draw in each individual line. You probably can't see it, but like this is actually not perfect, so this one's gonna end up offline, and that's okay. First, because it's pencil and I can always change it. And second, because we're doing a really big design, it's kind of going to be difficult to see mistakes. But if you drew them in by hand, by each individual square, you definitely wouldn't see anything wrong with it, because this isn't going to rely heavily on a continuous zigzag. Oh, that was all over the place. I just drew all over my paper. It's okay. It's pencil. I can erase it. Okay, so now I've got a general diamond pattern. And like, again, there are no mistakes in Zentangle, but like you can look for some if you really wanted to. But this is all in pencil, so very, very few consequences. Alright, so I'm going to start up in the corner here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in my bottom triangle little lines. And these are kind of huge in proportion to the Zentangles we've been doing, at least for me, right? See, I've got all these little tiny lines, and then I've got this huge pattern in the side. But this is all I'm going to do for this bottom triangle. So I'm just going to draw parallel lines going from the large end of the triangle to the point of the triangle. And they do leave really thick ends, at least on my marker, so I can also go in here and add that line to help kind of clean it up. And I'm going to continue this pattern going off the page too. So as I work inside where this fox is, I'm just being careful because my markers bleed a lot, so I'm making sure that I'm not touching the fox too much as I kind of make my way through here. Alright, so my last row here. So there's this portion. And then I'm going to take my second color, which I chose to be green, kind of a light green. And with my light green, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a ball in the center of the other one. You can always go in here and maybe do alternating lines, or you can just leave it blank. It's a very pretty pattern as it is. But I've never been very fond of Zentangle that leaves a lot of white space around it. So I usually go in, make sure that everything has something there, and that's just my personal preference. Alright, so here is my fox. He came out looking pretty alright, kind of looking psychedelic on that background. So we use like two different patterns here. We use the overlapping circles, and then we use this this gridded diagonal portion. So this is really nice. I'm going to set this guy aside, and I'm going to get set up for a second one. So if you're still finishing up with your fox, always feel free to do that. I'm just moving on to another one. Feel free to join me when you get the chance. Let's see here. Trying to put away my pens as we work so I don't create too much of a mess. And for the second one, I'm going to do a cute plant. I was really inspired because my roommate is collecting plants. She's basically building a garden up in her room. And so I keep thinking about plants. I'm not much of a plant person, but I keep thinking about plants. So I'm going to do a plant in a pot. And to do that, I'm going to start with kind of a rectangle or square down at the bottom here. Right? And then I'm going to draw another rectangle on top of it, and this will create my pot here. So that's where I'm going to start, and then from here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to taper in the bottom a little bit to create that that stereotypical kind of terracotta looking pot. I always loved those. I don't like touching them because they feel weird, but I love looking at them because they're so classic, you know? That right there is like garden aesthetic. So there is my little tapered pot. Then I'm going to move up to the top here, and I'm going to draw some leaves. So I'm going to start with a leaf in the back, and I'm not going to connect it to my pot. I'm just going to free draw it, kind of going up and off to the side. It's a little bit of a triangle shape that's just been rounded off, right? So just rounding that as I go. And then I'm going to move over to the side here. I'm going to draw a little point off in the distance so that I can help anchor myself while I draw a secondary line. Because this one's going to come in at the pot edge. And it's just going to flow outwards like that. So it's rounded just a little bit, but it's a straight line from the dot to the pot edge. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, kind of keeping it so I have an oval shape as I come in. And I think I'm just going to bring it out just a little bit more. Thank you, Heather. I hope you guys are enjoying it. So I'm going to draw one more leaf up between here. And come back down. Again, I'm trying to make these round, so I'm trying not to do a straight line, which is why there's so many little sketch lines here, because I want them round. And then I'm going to draw one more leaf off to the right here. And this one is going to match this one on the left here. So I'm just going to draw a point where I would like that leaf to be. Then I'm going to drag all the way up from the edge of the pot and back down again. Now I'm going to take this leaf, connect it back in, and there is my potted plant. So from here, I'm going to actually go straight to my colors. Just because this is such a simple design, I'm going to go straight into colors. I'm not even going to use a black line. And for this one, because I have the colors, I'm going to use two different kinds of green. Let's see here. So I've got two different kinds of green here. And what I'm going to do for the leaf is I'm going to take my darker green and I'm just going to outline it. Like this. And come back in. And I just go around the whole plant like that. Remember, no mistakes in Zentangle. No mistakes here. So now that I've got that outer edge, I'm gonna go in with my eraser because my pen in particular can trap ink or can trap pencil under the ink and create weird discoloration. So I just want to clean that up as soon as I can because I'm not using a black pen. And this next one is pretty light, so a lot of these pencil lines would show through if I kept them in there. So I erase out just the top half because I haven't outlined the bottom. And then I'm going to take my lighter green and I'm going to create an inside border to this darker green. And if you guys are working with black and white, I'm sorry, I'm boring. We'll get to the fun Zentangle part soon. Alright, so going into the bottom portion, I'm going to take a brown and an orange, and I'm basically going to do the same thing, right? I've got a brown, and an orange, and my orange shows up red for some reason. I don't know why, but I'm determined because it looks really bright on the cap. So I'm just going to take my brown here, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to outline my little pot. And then I'm going to take my eraser, and again, I'm just going to erase those pencil lines. Then I'm going to go in with my lighter, with my orange here. And I'm going to do the internal line. It's like it wants to show up orange, but then it sinks into a red as it dries. Alright, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to go back up to my leaves and I'm going to start Zentangling. So I'm going to start off on this leaf, and I'm going to do the same Zentangle throughout all of this, so it doesn't really matter where you start. But I'm going to go back to our swirl pattern, which of course I adore. And the way you start is you're going to set down your pen, then you're just going to create a swirl pattern. And the rule of thumb for this one is going to be that you make an equal amount of spacing between each of the lines as you go through here until you reach the edge of the design or until you reach another swirl. So I just go through here, and when I hit another swirl, sometimes I just want to fill up the space that's behind it. So I'm going to lift up my pen, follow the stroke, then set my pen down again when it reaches over whatever I've been blocked by. So I'm going to continue this particular swirl so I can fill up all of that space right there. And my markers bleed quite a bit, so I'm going to make these a little bit bigger so that as they bleed out, they don't distort the pattern too much. And I'm just going to follow that pattern all the way through. Thank you for all the compliments, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are having fun. Enjoying doing your Zentangle. Alright, I'm gonna move on to my next leaf here. I love how it bleeds out. Like, I kind of complained about it bleeding, but it's also really nice because as it bleeds out, it creates this really soft look rather than kind of these harsher lines from these brand new ones that haven't bled yet. Alright. Just gonna keep moving on here. there is my pattern up top. So I'm gonna grab my orange marker for the bottom. One of the things that I haven't talked about in a while is like how I choose my patterns. I had this question a long while back, and I didn't really think about it at the time because I wasn't doing pictures like this. I've talked about like grabbing objects and creating Zentangles from objects, and we've done that before here. And for those, I just kind of do whatever pattern I want. But when it comes to taking pictures like this and then filling them in, I tend to choose patterns that I think fit with the object or what it's supposed to portray, right? So for this one, like the swirls for me like mean continuous, right? I mean, because unlike circles, they're continually growing, right? And they're only impeded by other growth. So this feels very alive to me. And I'm going to use the same pattern down here in the pot because for me it also feels like, you know, this contains growth. And, you know, most pots in my mind come from clay, and clay being a part of the earth is also a part of like the circle of life. But again, the circle doesn't always feel like a circle of life to me. So I always choose to use swirls to represent that. And if you're making your own patterns or designs at home, like that's usually just what I do for choosing patterns. And I find that, you know, it makes it feel more wholesome because the patterns fit with the objects that they're being put in. So you don't have like, for example, a fox with a checkerboard pattern on his fur. Not that there's anything bad with that, but for me it helps to choose a pattern that embodies the fox. And for me, foxes just don't embody checkerboards. So I would love to see any original work that you guys create outside of these sessions, because that would be super cool. But I'm interested, do you guys choose if you do make original work outside of these and you choose to use different patterns, is there any kind of meaning behind what patterns you choose? Or do you just choose what you like looking at? You know, let me know. Alright, so there is my base pattern for that one. And now I'm going to use purple for the background. Again, I have the privilege of having two different kinds of purples available to me, but if you don't, feel free to use what you got. For this one, I'm not going to measure out what I'm going to do, but I am going to use a ruler to help with my lines. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do parallel sets of lines. So I'm just taking my marker and I'm drawing one line and then I'll draw another. Just being careful, because I'm using my marker, not to overlap with the plant. So Now I have some not evenly spaced, like not at all really, spaced lines. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'm kind of going to choose a direction, right? I'm going to put my ruler on here for a general guide, a little ruler. And then I'm just going to draw parallel lines inside of my lines. And all I'm doing is I'm using the ruler to remind me kind of what direction I'm going in. I've briefly kind of talked about like optimum lengths for things. This really isn't my optimum length as far as like designs go because of how long it is. I do a lot better with shorter lines like I did over here. Just like my hand moves a little bit better, they come out a little bit straighter. It's not such a strain to kind of go a little bit longer, because this one I have to be kind of mindful about how and where I'm placing my pen, how things are going, what's going on. But as they get shorter, I get more confident in how they're going to end up looking, so I go a little bit quicker. And I enjoy shorter lines more because of that. Just because I don't usually have to think too hard about what I'm doing within a pattern. So this right here, base of the design. Remember when I said I was going to try and keep it clean as I went? I failed. Alright, so now I'm going to finish up by filling in what's remaining of the white space over here. And this is just because in this particular case, you know, the white space kind of it becomes the center of attention, but I want the center of attention to be my pretty plant, so I'm going to fill in these background white spaces. And for this one, I am going to use a ruler because I want the lines to be really, really straight. And I think I can get away with using my little ruler. So I am going to do lines in the opposite direction. And I've got a different colored pen here. Mine happens to be a lighter purple. So I'm just going to take this. And then whoosh. I like this color purple. I like purple in general, it's one of my favorite colors, but this is really nice. So I'm going to come over here to this one. And as I bring my ruler up to finish this top part, because I did have to split it up a bit, I'm going to try and keep these lines the same as much as I can. Over here. Oops, sorry. Just trying to readjust my camera a little bit. So I'm gonna come in over here. I'm just gonna I'm gonna go from one end to the other on this one just because it finishes by going from one end to the other. So I'm not even gonna just try and break it up or anything. off to my last section here. Oh, that was a lot bigger than I thought it was. Okay. So this is my finished piece. See, now with all that white in the background gone, it really does make my little plant pop, which I'm happy about because he's adorable. Alright, well, we've come to the end of our session. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we did 2 cute little Zentangles. If you missed doing the first one, feel free to wait until we post this video in about 2 minutes, and you can go back to the beginning and start from the top, I guess. So thank you again so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. This has been Zentangle with Jo Mackenzie and the HIR Wellness Institute, and I will see you again next week, Saturday at 10 a.m. Bye-bye.